Chapter 39. A Good Omen. The 6 months were past. Behold! Upon a lofty hill, surrounded by magnificent beeches, whose overhanging boughs make a royal arch of green above the smoothly graveled driveway that encircles it, stands a grand old castle, the very air around which breathes of centuries and aristocracy. On this brilliant day, its massive portals were swung wide open. A magnificent floral arch was erected over the wide entrance, while above it, in letters of gilt, is inscribed that sweetest of words, welcome. And garlands and festoons hung suspended through every room and hall, as if clad in holiday attire, in honor of loved and long-expected guests. The great drawing room on the left of the grand old hall is redolent with the richest perfume, and within it, pacing up and down its spacious length, clad in her rich and trailing robes, is the fair mistress of all this grandeur and magnificence, lovely Enid Chichester. Hope and joy beam in her eyes, a flush is upon her soft cheek, which creeps higher and higher with every passing moment, while smiles part her ruby lips, showing the gleaming pearls between. Suddenly she starts, a happy, expectant look is upon her face, as she bends eagerly forward in a listening attitude. Yes, she is not deceived. The sound of approaching wheels, grating upon the gravel driveway, comes in through the open hall, and with a joyous cry she bounds out to receive her friends. 3 heavy traveling carriages drew up before the hospitable door, their glowing occupants alighted, and immediately all was gay confusion, handshaking until the bones ached, kissing and congratulations. At last all was over and settled in his or her respective apartments, and the next 2 or 3 days were given up to resting, after their long and tedious journey. Enid did the honors as mistress, as she did everything else, gracefully, and dispensed her hospitality with a lavish hand, her heart overflowing with excessive joy in the happiness she was contributing and receiving. One morning, soon after the arrival, she arose early, and descending the grand old stairway, went, softly humming to herself, into the library, where she intended to have a quiet hour all her own, before her guests should come down to breakfast. The morning sun streamed brightly in through the low, open window, which led out upon a balcony overlooking the park. With a sigh of pleasure, Enid seated herself in an inviting armchair, and lay back among its cushions, with a smile of happiness upon her sweet lips, wholly forgetful of the book she held in her hand, and which she had intended reading, and wholly unconscious that a pair of fine dark eyes were tenderly regarding her from behind the heavy curtains which draped the balcony window. Neither did she hear a step upon the soft carpet, or realize the presence of any one, until a fragrant waxen Cape jasmine was suddenly dropped from above into her lap. She started then, and looked quickly up, but flushed the deepest crimson, as she met the earnest gaze of Ralph Ellerton, who was bending over the back of her chair. "Why, good morning, Mr. Ellerton," she said, striving to cover her confusion by speaking lightly. "How you surprised me. I thought I was the only one stirring so early this morning. Pardon me for startling you, but I have been up since sunrise, over the hills and far away. I have but just come in, and stepped out upon the balcony to enjoy the glorious view. It is fine, isn't it? Poor Papa used to enjoy it so much," she replied, sadly, the tears springing to her eyes, then added, this was always his favorite resort, and he would sit for hours upon the balcony and gaze upon the scenery around. She picked up the flower he had thrown into her lap, inhaled its fragrance, and then fastened it upon her bosom. He smiled slightly at the act, and she, suddenly looking up, caught his eye fixed upon her, and again the rich blood suffused her face, but she did not remove the flower. "Enid," said Ralph, tenderly, "may I interpret that as a good omen? May I tell you of my love after waiting so long?" "There is no need to tell it, Ralph, I knew it long ago," she replied, in tones as tender, and with an irresistible frankness. "Darling, your tones tell me, if your words do not, that you return it, unworthy as I am," he said, as he passionately clasped her in his arms. "Yes, Ralph, I do. I loved you before I left that horrid cavern, and it almost broke my heart when I thought you the husband of another. But even after I found you were free again, I would not encourage you to speak the words which I knew were on your lips, for I wished to try you first, to prove the good I felt there was in you.